Hey guys, this is the American Psycho Lance Archer from New Japan Pro Wrestling, and you are listening to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special presentation of the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network. I am, of course, Nick, but today what we're bringing you is our guy Lewis, our correspondent up there in Canada. He's chasing everybody all over the world. He does our Impact Wrestling show, but he also does our Ring of Honor New Japan show, and he's done a phenomenal job of reaching out to talents with those companies and bringing them onto the network. And of course, Lewis is he's been on hiatus a little bit. We've talked about that in a few weeks. He's doing a lot of moving, but when he could land a big star, like he got a hold of Lance Archer from over at New Japan Pro Wrestling, he couldn't pass up that opportunity. So, he got a few minutes to talk with him. So what we're going to do here is we're going to jump right in. They were having some conversation, and it was getting so good. Lewis hit the record button, and they were off to the races. So, I'm going to present to you, Lance Archer from New Japan Pro Wrestling.
All right, so, I know you're a great tag team. Have you ever thought about maybe, cause you guys teamed together so long that maybe you want to consider a singles run and maybe, get a shot at Goto or Okada and maybe go after singles belt in New Japan?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's always people, you definitely want to have success at any chance that you have. Obviously, we've done what we've done as a tag team since 2012. It's coming up on 6 years now as a tag team. We've done a lot together, and obviously we want to continue that success as a tag team. But yeah, absolutely. I think if there was an opportunity given to he or I as a singles competitor, we would definitely bust our butts and try to prove to the world that we're not only successful as tag team wrestlers, but that we could be successful singles wrestlers as well.
So just say you have a one-on-one match with Okada. How do you think that match would play out? I know Okada is one of the best in the world. He's held that heavyweight title for a very long time. How do you think that match would play out? And do you think you can actually take that title away from Okada?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I believe I can take the title away from Okada. But, it wouldn't be the first time that I've had singles competition with him because, again, I've been in New Japan since 2011. I've wrestled him in the G1. I've wrestled him in the New Japan Cup. He's gotten the better of me every time that we've actually had singles competition against each other. But now who I am, the wrestler I am, the entity I am, the character I carry, all those things combined in comparison to what I was the last time he and I stepped in a ring against each other is a very different person. And then you add the title into it and you have a whole new motivation into it that's not just a G1 match or not just a New Japan Cup match. Now it actually means something. It's for something. It's for that IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And a chance to solidify myself in the world of professional wrestling is one of the best. Motivate somebody in a way that you can never even imagine.
All right, and in New Japan, who would you say would be the Killer Elite Squad's toughest opponents? Would it be Sonata and Evil? Would it be Yano and Ishii? Who would you say was your toughest opponents?
Like in the history of our time together?
In the history of your time together.
You're mentioning a couple teams, maybe you've been watching New Japan since we've come back to New Japan.
Yeah.
But again, we've been together since 2012, so we've faced all kinds of different teams in New Japan. And one of our main rivals from back in the day that kind of made KES who they are was Tenzan and Kojima, one of the greatest tag teams to ever step foot in a Japanese wrestling ring, and really all of the world, in my opinion. We've had so many battles with them. It was kind of a running joke that just about every other big show and every other title match was us against them, and either we had the titles or they had the titles back in the day when we were going against them. Actually, they were the team that we beat when we first won the first time we won the IWGP tag titles back in October of 2012. So those were our biggest rivals for the longest time. They've gone through some different situations and injuries and had separations and whatnot. And Kojima himself is recovering right now. But I'd have to say they were probably our longest reigning rivalry and toughest opponents, considering how many times we actually fought them, won and lost, unfortunately, in a couple of situations.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Yeah, you're right. I've recently subscribed to New Japan World, so I just recently got into New Japan, and I love New Japan. So I'm more with the recent, like the last year and a half. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about was Making the kids cry. I know I tweet a lot about it and you retweet it. How do you like? First of all, I think it's awesome heel work when you're making the kids cry, and the parents seem to love it as well. It's like they're holding the kids out. They want the kid to cry. They want you to make the kid cry. Do you ever feel any remorse at all when you go to the back that you made the kid cry, and how did that whole thing come about?
It just kind of happened naturally. It wasn't a situation where, it was a planned moment or anything like that. It's just, the character of the American Psycho. Again, I've been the American Psycho Lance Archer since I arrived in New Japan back in 2011. And the character itself has evolved, even from the first time I got there. The one thing they wanted was this big, bad monster Texan. I've just evolved it over the time. We actually spent 2 years over in Pro Wrestling Noah, all of Suzuki-gun did, before we made our return back to New Japan. And my character really started to evolve there because I just felt I could open up, and I was just trying to find new ways to do things. And, as I started the watering of the crowds, as I like to say, I'd see that some people really enjoyed it, and then others would get really scared by it. And, the kids in Japan are very much into the idea of professional wrestling as being real in that sense. And they act in real emotions and stuff like that. So I was able to find just kids that were genuinely scared. And I've been doing it for a long time, like I said, since before you just now started watching New Japan.
Sure.
I got a lot of people on Twitter going, "Hey, I owe Chucky T some money," and I'm like, "Well, maybe if it was in the States or something like that, me and Chucky'd have to have a conversation about that." But I've been doing this for a long time in Japan, so I've been scaring kids since 2011.
No, it's great stuff. There was one kid, I think, I forget which show it was, but there's a kid in the front row that you made cry. You went back into the ring, and after the match, you ran out again, and you made him cry a second time. I thought that was great. So, and like I said, the parents love it. The parents want they're laughing, they're enjoying it, they're making their kids cry, and they love it. It's like I said, they're bringing the kids in, hoping you make them cry. So it's great stuff, man. Great stuff. So at which point in your life did you decide that you want to become a pro wrestler? Was there a wrestler that influenced you? Was it a TV show? What made you want to become a professional wrestler?
Well, I was in high school and college. I was a big fan of pro wrestling, and I didn't get to watch wrestling all my life. I didn't start watching wrestling until I was, I think, a freshman or sophomore in high school. But I was a big fan, and I was watching it through high school. I was watching it into college. But I was playing football. That was my main goal. I was to play football and to achieve success both in high school, collegiately, and hopefully professionally. But it didn't really pan out that way. Once I got into college, there was a lot of competition, as in every sport, business, and life, there's politics involved in that. And some of that came into play. And I just ended up stopped playing, football in my third year of college time, my university time. And then I was working in the club in downtown Austin, and the owner of the club actually knew a guy that had randomly just opened up his own wrestling school in Austin, Texas, called the Southwest Wrestling Federation. He made the introduction. The guy invited me out, and I went through a tryout, and it was the most painful thing I'd ever done because I didn't know anything about professional wrestling. I just knew what I saw on TV, but I didn't know the physical aspect and how physically real it was. And I almost didn't go back. But then the guy called me and was like, "Are you going to come train?" I was like, "Oh, I'm a poor college kid. I can't afford the school." And then he was like, "Well, how much can you pay?" And I gave him a number, and he was like, "That's fine. Come on." And I was like, "Oh, crap." I backed myself into my own corner trying to get out of it by money's sake. And he accepted what I threw out there. And, kind of the rest is history. And thank goodness I went back because it's like I said, I'm coming up on 18 years, and it's been a pretty good one.
So how difficult was it in the beginning to get work? I know, say you went through the training. Actually, I should ask this: at what point did you decide when you were training that you were ready to have your first match? Was it a few months? Was it a year? How long until you had your first match?
I never decided any of that. The promoter and of the company decided it, and it was a month after I started training, which was way, 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 way too early. I should have never been in the ring wrestling anybody for any reason after a month of training. But he ran a very small independent company. He didn't have at that time a lot of money, so I was a tall, decent looking kid, and I had decent athletic background, and I guess I'd picked up the business well enough that he wanted to stick me in the ring. And so he put me in my very first match a little over a month after I started training, which like I said, I was absolutely not ready for. But as a kid who's just hungry and wants to get in the ring and wants to wrestle, who am I to say no, right?
Sure. Do you remember who your opponent was and what
What's that?
I was going to say, your opponent, did you actually win the match, the first match?
No, I did not.
Okay.
His name was Tarzan Taylor, though.
Okay. All right. Was it a quick match, or did you learn anything from that match, or how?
Oh yeah, no, I learned a lot. No, it wasn't a quick match. I mean, it wasn't a horribly long match. He was a bad guy. He was a heel, and he really worked the crowd and kind of made that aspect extremely easy for me because he got them so upset and so ready for me to do just about anything, very old school style. That by the time I just punched him, the people went nuts for it. So, it was that I did learn something because, like I said, I watched this guy really piss off the people, to say the least. And then once I finally did something, it was cool.
All right. So now, early back in 2004, you were in TNA. You were known as Dallas, and I've always wanted to ask you this question because I always wondered. And now that I have you here, I'm going to go ahead and ask you.
Okay.
Being Dallas, were you ever worried that people were going to confuse you with Diamond Dallas Page? Because I know he was in TNA as well. Did that ever worry you that you were going to be confused with him?
Well, I was Dallas before Diamond Dallas Page joined TNA.
Okay.
I mean, the initial name was given to me by Jeff Jarrett and all those guys. His dad was still involved with the company at the time, and they were trying to come up with a name. And basically, they were, well, "Where's he from?" And they were like, "Dallas." And they were like, "That's his name. Let him go with it." And that's kind of how the Dallas name came to be. Like I said, the whole situation of Diamond Dallas Page when he did come into the company, even though it wasn't directly told to me that it was an issue, and I don't know if Page himself ever had an issue with it, directly, but from my understanding, I was on TV and then I was taken off TV. And then when I did come back to TV, my name wasn't Dallas anymore. It was Lance Hoyt, my real name.
Okay.
And like I said, it was never outright said, we can't have two Dallases in the company. But from my understanding, to some degree, someone somewhere decided that they didn't want that to be and decided to change my name, which, it's fine. And at first I hated the idea of wrestling as Lance Hoyt, but then the Impact crowd really took it as their own and created like the Hoyt section and the Hoytomaniacs and stuff like that. So they had a lot of fun with it, and so did I when it was kind of going strong and having a good time.
All right, now Impact Wrestling. I'm not sure if you watch the product these days, but they're in I would say almost desperate need for good tag teams. Would you and Davey Boy Smith Jr. ever consider working for Impact Wrestling? I know you returning there and Davey Boy Smith working there. Would you ever consider going to Impact Wrestling as a tag team with Davey Boy Smith Jr.?
I always say this in this business: you never say never, because there's a lot of people that have said never about stuff, and then they actually end up doing it. As of right now, like I said, we're with New Japan Pro Wrestling. If and when that ever changed, or there was a relationship that was created between Impact and New Japan, like I said, you never know what's going to happen. I'm just somebody who likes to prove myself anywhere and everywhere I go. If Smith and I had the chance to go to Impact and show them what some real heavyweight tag team champions can do, I think they would be pleasantly surprised. So would the fans, and maybe not the wrestlers, because they'd have to actually fight us.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, I'm an Impact Wrestling fan. I would love to see you guys at Impact Wrestling. I know you got Don Callis there. He's got a connection with New Japan. Yeah, I would love to see a working agreement between Impact and.
If Don's the connection, it may be a problem because he runs from me every time I make my entrance.
That's true. That's a very good point. He's afraid of the water. Yeah. Speaking of the water, were you doing that for years, or did that just come back recently, or go around spraying everybody with water? And when did that come about?
I mean, it's one of those things that has grown in its own respect. I have been doing it for years. Like I said, we were gone to Pro Wrestling Noah for like 2 years, and that's where it kind of really started. I wasn't doing it as extreme as I am now. I'd really just come out with water bottles and I'd spit the water into the air towards the people and things like that. But, it itself has grown as the fans have come to actually enjoy it and embrace it and call for it and yell for it and jump up for it and things like that. And then at the Tokyo Dome, I think that was when it kind of really started to explode, in popularity, because it was one of the first times the world had seen it happen. And I was trying to come up with a way, because normally, like I said, I just kind of went around ringside and I just spat at the people that were at ringside, and I was originally planning to go into the audience and stuff like that, and that was kind of vetoed. And I was like, well, how do I get the most water exposure? And I just started chunking the water as far and hard as I could into the audience, and people just kind of reacted to it positively, both on the internet and live. And it's just continued to expand from there. And I have a lot of fun with it. And like I said, the fans are starting to accept it. I was really surprised when we did the Strong Style Evolve show in LA at how much the American fans actually embraced it. I was afraid that, the American fans would not be so happy to have water spit in their direction, but they were really into it. And I had one dude run up to the guardrail and he wanted to get sprayed. It's kind of cool to see that hardcore New Japan fan base who had been watching and seeing what we'd been doing, seeing what I'd been doing, for that accepting of it. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, next time you see Callis and Kevin Kelly, give them an extra spray of water for me, if that's okay.
What's that?
Next time you run past Don Callis and Kevin Kelly, spray them with a little extra bit of water for me, if you don't mind, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, I'm good with Kevin. Don's kind of fun because he takes off and he runs and he tries to get umbrellas and stuff. So he makes it competitive. He's not just sitting there.
There you go, man. There you go. And I hope this is not a dumb question, but you've had many tag team partners in your career. Is it safe to say that Davey Boy Smith Jr. is your favorite tag team partner?
Yeah, in that sense, because we've had the most success. But I've had a lot of fun with pretty much everybody that I've had an opportunity to tag with. From Kid Cash to Ron Killings to obviously the Rock and Raven Fection in TNA was a lot of fun. I think that one had a lot more life to it than was given and stuff like that. So I've had a lot of cool tag teams. Kurt Hawkins and WWE. If Kurt and I were still teaming, maybe he wouldn't be losing as many matches as he is. But he wears that as a badge of honor. I see that.
Sure, man. So you mentioned WWE. I just wanted to ask, you were in WWE, I think, for 2 years, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. How does the WWE compare to your time with New Japan Pro Wrestling?
How does it compare? You got to understand. My time in WWE, unfortunately, was extremely short, and it wasn't very successful. I was happy to get the opportunity to work there. Good and bad things. You can place a lot of blame in different areas, and some of that has to be placed on myself as to why it didn't succeed. But it is what it is. I've had my most success. I've had my most fun. I've grown the most in my time in New Japan. So New Japan has absolutely been my best time in my career. So, it's hard to compare that when WWE, unfortunately, was very short-lived and very unsuccessful.
Now you have some big shows coming up in Texas this weekend. I saw on your Twitter page. I know you, Davey Boy Smith Jr. is here, Killer Elite Squad. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those shows coming up in Texas and who your opponents might be?
I don't know who our opponents are going to be at this. Well, I know one set of opponents, actually. We're wrestling Friday night in Texoma for Texoma Pro. In Sherman, Texas. We're going to be wrestling for Lions Pride Sports in Navasota, Texas on Saturday, and then Anarchy Championship Wrestling in Austin on Sunday. I know that we're wrestling a pair of guys, Noby Bryant and Big Daddy Yum Yum, Byron Wilcott at Lions Pride. Their character names are Chocolate City, and we're gonna have to melt that chocolate down and put them out of their misery. And then they actually have a 6-man for our Sunday show with Anarchy Championship Wrestling, and we're teaming with Gangrel out of all the people in the world. So it's a 6-man Killer Elite Squad and Gangrel versus I'm not sure. I don't have the card in front of me. I just know that we're teaming with them. Okay. And then, like I said, Texoma Pro and Sherman, we're going to be wrestling Friday night. So it's actually it's a killer tour of Texas, and that's what's going to happen this weekend.
All right, man. Well, look forward to that. Are they gonna by any chance be streaming these shows like on Fight TV or anything like that? So
I don't think any of these will be streamed. There might be some Facebook Live stuff or something here or there. I'm not sure. Some of the places like to do that these days. Okay. There's going to be a lot of guys on the Saturday show for Lions Pride Sports. It's actually it's a kind of a benefit type show. It's for a cause called Bustin' for Autism. So a lot of the proceeds are going to be going to this group that helps in autism research and things of that nature. You got guys like MVP and Billy Gunn, and Gangrel's going to be on that show as well. So there's going to be a lot of the old school former names on that show, and then including Killer Elite Squad and some of the top Texas talent that's a part of Lions Pride Sports.
All right, man. Very cool. Very cool. Now, you've been wrestling for many, many years. Do you have a dream match? Maybe an opponent that you've never, I know you mentioned the Young Bucks earlier, but is there a dream match that you hope to have before your career is over?
Man, it's hard to say that. I don't know. I mean, my dream matches would be, tag title matches on the biggest shows. We've been lucky enough to wrestle on Wrestle Kingdom. Like I said, again, being there since 2011, Smith and I have wrestled 3 different times as the tag champs on Wrestle Kingdom. One time we were successful, 2 times, unfortunately, we were not successful. So, it'd be kind of a cool thing to actually win the tag titles at Wrestle Kingdom and or to get a chance at a singles title and wrestle for one of those at Wrestle Kingdom. And then, of course, you obviously have WWE and what it represents, the opportunity for Smith and I to go in as a tag team and prove what we can do on the biggest stage in the world. But New Japan, like I said, is becoming such a big stage that it's almost unnecessary to some degree. If people are looking at it that way and how the business is growing, like I said, the all-in event that Cody and the Young Bucks and Kenny and all those guys have put together and have sold out. You have to give kudos to them and the success they're having. And that just says how strong and well the business is doing right now. With that many fans that are willing to go to a non-WWE event. That's awesome. I applaud them and I applaud the business and I applaud the fans. It seems like they're having a lot more fun these days than they used to in the past, which is really cool.
All right, man. Last question, because I know you got to get going.
Okay.
I just say, what does the rest of 2018 hold for Lance Archer?
The rest of 2018 is just a continuance of progression, man. I'm just always looking forward, always moving forward, always pushing forward, always trying to find that next step to success. I'm never satisfied with the success I've had. I'm always looking to succeed more, and that's exactly what I'm going to continue to do in 2018. And whether that's Smith and I as a tag team and continuing on and recapturing IWGP Gold or whatever we're going to do or wherever we're going to go, or if it means something singles. But I'm never going to rest on my laurels, and I'm always going to push myself forward to try to succeed in the biggest and best way I can.
There you go, man. Like I said earlier, I hope the Young Bucks do win because I really want to see Killer Elite Squad against the Young Bucks. I really hope that. So I'm rooting for the Young Bucks to win the titles. But before you go, anything you want to plug quickly before we wrap this up?
Well, like I said, there's 3 different shows here in Texas this weekend: Texoma Pro in Sherman, Lions Pride Sports in Navasota, Texas, and Anarchy Championship Wrestling on Sunday in Austin, Texas. You guys can hit me up at Lance Hoyt on Twitter, Lance_Hoyt on Instagram, and then my public Facebook page is Lance Hoyt. So hit me up anytime, shoot me a message, and as long as it's not something silly, I'll probably answer you back.
All right, man. Well, thanks a lot, Lance. I really appreciate you joining me today. It was just an absolute pleasure, and I continue nothing but the best of success for 2018 and beyond, man.
Okay, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Okay, thank you, man. Well, this has been the Pro Wrestling Personified podcast. Again, I want to thank my guest, Lance Archer, New Japan Pro Wrestling superstar. And until next time, thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye, and stay safe, everyone. So long.